welcome to the first of the two planning board meetings scheduled for July here in Kennebunkport. I'd like to begin. I should say that there is a Zoom component to this meeting, and when we come to the public hearings, we'll be attending to that as well as the folks in the room. Start by an attendance. There's 3 board members here this evening, which is a quorum. We're flirting with the low end of the number. There can be as many as 7 people on the board, 2 auxiliary members and 5 voting members. But because of, in fact, we just there's some resignations, people leaving town, and we just lost a member to go take on a position on the select board. But we're down to 4 members. Mike West sent us a note this afternoon. He's got a problem with his dogs and can't make it. So please, if you have any inclination to serve the town in this capacity, it's a reasonable position.
Or if you know someone.
We're not that hard to get along with.
You're not.
Generally. So there are 3 members here, Peter, George, and myself. Start with the approval of minutes. Have you had a chance to look at the minutes?
I did.
Peter, and I should say that I wasn't here for the last meeting, but I did watch the entirety of the meeting on Zoom, and so I will also weigh in on the minutes. I thought they were fine.
I agree. I'd make a
All in
motion that
favor?
we accept the minutes.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
So let's start. There's 5 items on the agenda tonight. Let's start with the first one. It's number 250507, Bath Lane, the sketch plan. Evening.
Good evening. Good evening, James Lowry. I am with BH2M, and this is, as you noted, sketch plan, so your first glance at this proposed 4-lot subdivision. It's the applicant is Fomez Development LLC. It is on tax map 22 lot 9-12. If you don't mind if I pull this back so I can point.
I can see exactly the same amount of text as I can before you moved it. Yes.
Well, good. So I can see a little bit better. So
Okay, so I think that's the right move then.
maybe it's not a win-win, but it gets me a little bit.
I'm just saying you'll have to help us.
I will.
Okay.
So the property here is a little unique in that it is, effectively you've got a piece down here at the corner of Old Cape Road and Bath Lane, and then you've got a larger piece up in this area. They, up Bath Lane a little bit. The parcel up here is split through the Cape Porpoise West zone and the Free Enterprise zone, and this piece down here is also in the Cape Porpoise West zoning district.
I have a question. In looking at this, I've been puzzling over how did the property end up like that? It's a single property and not 2 separate properties.
You know, I thought about that earlier this afternoon when I was going through things. I wasn't part of the application process, compiling the application materials, but it's certainly something we can inquire about. There is a piece, an undeveloped parcel, right in this area.
Right.
And, you know, I would have to go back and do a little, or have our surveyors go back and do a little deed research as to how that piece may have been separated out and prior owners retained the two non-contiguous pieces.
Okay, yeah, because depending upon when and how that was done, was it a subdivision?
I can provide a little bit of staff perspective here. It was not a subdivision, I believe. I spoke with Galen about this project a little bit. I think that at some point in the past, the owner of the property just decided to split off a piece in the middle. And we don't allow that to happen anymore, but it has there are a few lots in town that are like this, that somehow have two halves of a lot on different, that are not directly touching. The whole lot should be one piece, but it does happen. It's kind of similar to our sketch plan that we saw a couple months ago from Salty Acres,
Yeah.
also two halves of a lot.
Yes.
So it's not from a previous subdivision, it just is a lot split that happened to leave two separate pieces of lot not touching.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
And when, you'll notice on the sketch plan that we're really considering Lot 1 as its own standalone piece, and then we did the piece down here.
Yeah,
So,
because it's the one with the larger lot size
Right.
requirement.
But it had a larger lot size requirement, being in the free enterprise zone, and it more or less is just over the minimum requirement. So that lot itself can stand alone, but because it's all part of the same subject property, then it all gets encompassed into the subdivision. And then the net density calculations here are based on the division of this larger piece. Look up and see the area.
You can either
Sorry.
move them,
About
take the mic with
120,
you.
You can put that in your hand.
124,000 square feet piece here that we've done the preliminary net density to demonstrate that it's,
The other thought that jumps out at me is how will you create open space with this subdivision?
that will be something we can address. It's not a cluster subdivision. And I believe that was alluded to in your memo.
Yes, but all subdivisions in Kennebunkport require 15% open space.
Okay. I will make note of that.
And how would that work if they're not contiguous?
I think that it would be fine. It's a pretty rare
Does this
situation.
lot have 900 square feet or?
I think that in looking at this subdivision, we'll just have to look at it as one lot and sort of, just pretend that there magically are touching in terms of open space.
Okay. Thank you.
It doesn't have to be common access open
Right.
space. It just has to be open space, yeah. Okay.
All right, where did I leave off?
Yeah, we keep interrupting you.
No, you're fine. To me, sketch plan is all about getting things out on the table early so we can address them through the process. Wetlands have been delineated with, and a vernal pool assessment. It's a couple of areas right here that comes through and bisects Lot 3. A little bit on the edge of the two edges of Lot 1, excuse me. There is also, as noted on here, we reference the latest 100-year floodplain. This down here is part of the Turbot's Creek. This one up here is somewhat associated with Patty Creek and a little bit that comes down and just does touch into our parcel. The delineation was done in the spring of 2025, vernal pool assessment. Did not yield any vernal pools on site.
Excuse me,
Yep.
any significant vernal pools?
No, it did not find any vernal pools.
No egg masses.
No egg
No.
masses, right.
Okay, maybe I have to go look at my definitions again. I thought you're saying it has to have egg masses to be
Yeah.
a vernal pool rather than and what is a significant vernal pool then?
It's got egg masses.
I think a significant vernal pool is based on the number of
Right.
egg masses
Right.
and perhaps the size of the pool. But there can be very, very small, insignificant vernal pools in terms of the ordinance.
That's what I thought, that they were not significant, but they were still vernal pools in that they there during the rainy, wet season, and then they're gone.
Yes, but I don't believe that this lot has any even small
Right.
insignificant vernal
The,
pools.
the assessment we got from Mark Hampton indicated no vernal pools. And to the point, yeah,
Yeah.
if
Per the
you were to
definition.
find a vernal pool with egg masses, then the threshold for significance depends on the species and the number of egg masses found.
Thank you.
So the proposed subdivision, of course, you know, we talked about lot one more or less as a standalone, and then a 33-foot right-of-way coming up through along the boundary of the Schubach parcel, creating lots 2 and 3, then terminating with a hammerhead back here at lot 4.
Now, in an instance where the two zones or bisect basically lot 3 here, which rules in terms of the minimum lot size?
I believe that the applicant spoke to Galen before submitting this subdivision plan. I think that we agreed that the two upper lots could be ruled by the Cape Porpoise West rules. I believe that more of is lot 3 the one in the middle?
Lot 3 is
I believe
this
that
one.
more of lot 3 is in the Cape Porpoise West zone, and that's why we're allowing it to function under those
Under the
land
20,000.
requirements. Yes. But I'll check in with Galen too. We can come up with a firmer determination for you for the future of what we do if there's a split in that way.
Right, it's either going to be the more restrictive applies, or
The one with more area.
which one has the more area.
Yep.
So what's our
So,
position?
yes,
on
we'll
that?
certainly double check into that.
And do these square footages exclude any of this wetlands, particularly lot 3?
Well, the number at the top, so looking at lot 3, 27,401 is the
That is
gross
23.
area. And then it has the net lot area that would deduct the wetland amount is the 23,300.
I see that. I'm sorry I missed that.
Yep, no
thank
problem.
you.
Then the other things I wanted to, had in my notes to touch on were that these lots will be served by private wells, individual septic systems. And then we had also, we posed it in a sense because if the board were to require the 3 items that we noted in our cover letter, that takes a little coordination with sub-consultants, things like that. That's the preliminary waiver request for the high-intensity soil survey. That was asked for because essentially septic designs will be done on each of these 4 lots, so that the soils work will be taken care of. The hydrogeologic assessment, this does not appear to be situated over a significant sand and gravel aquifer. And then stormwater management, the amount of road will be fairly minimal with the house construction, home construction. And then from a technical standpoint on that, where I mentioned this area up here is part of the Paddy Creek tributary, Paddy Creek watershed. Then you get down below here and it's part of the Turbot's Creek watershed. You've got 2 fairly substantial stream segments, both with 100-year floodplains associated with them, and our contribution to stormwater into those systems would be relatively small.
One of the things we usually look at with regard to stormwater in particular is we don't see elevations on here. Maybe, I don't know what the elevation changes are, but you worry about this work impinging on whatever's going on in this case, on the central lot or on the butters and the like.
Yep. And with our preliminary subdivision plan submission, we will have topography on there. I know the survey crew was out this week doing some work on that.
Right, so I just wanted to make the point that that would be the predominant concern of the board.
Okay,
Is the effect of this work, not just on what's being put into the creek, but on abutters,
yep,
on either side of the road.
right.
It is. There was a subdivision down the road a little bit, past year and a half or so, and one of the concerns was traffic and getting in and out of a new driveway and its placement. I'd want to see what the placement of the driveway is relative to who's across the street. You've got that bend coming up around there, and I know that
With regard to where it comes out onto Bath
where it
Lane?
comes out onto Bath Lane,
Okay,
Bath Lane is not a very heavily trafficked road, right?
No.
It's not like it's the
no,
old
it's a
Cape Road.
private road.
Okay, never mind, I forget about that, what I said. I was thinking it was Old Cape Road.
So you would have a separate driveway from Lot 1 onto Bath Lane?
I would imagine so. I don't know if the town has any policies or requirements that would dictate either to Old Cape or Bath Lane, but you've got a fair amount right here. If that's your preference to come out onto Bath Lane, we can make sure we pass that along to the applicant.
What I said before about Old Cape Road.
Yeah. And this is, as, to flip around, it is not right at the intersection with Main Street where the American Legion is, but it's getting relatively close, so.
Okay, thanks.
And just to conclude, there were a couple of items noted in Nadia's memo to me that we got today. We redid the medium-intensity soil survey off the internet and emailed that over that showed simply the property area to clarify where that was. And then I talked with our surveyors that had worked on the boundary and done the deed research. The only thing with regard to a deed restriction or an easement that they found that pertained to this property was a road maintenance agreement for Bath Lane, so we provided that.
And of course, you'll have some sort of a road maintenance agreement among these 3 lots at least,
I would presume so, yeah.
as part of the subdivision
Yep.
submission. There's no common lands to be taken care of except for the maintenance of the road.
Right. And you would want that with the preliminary submission, or is that,
That'd be great, but even a draft of it at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
okay,
With preliminary, we ask for a draft of the HOA or road
Yeah.
association agreements.
Yep.
We wouldn't ask you to finalize that until the final
right.
application. And a couple notes from staff. I know that you read the memo, so you're familiar. The Public Works Director noted that this subdivision is passing very close to Reynolds Lane and recommended that the applicant discuss whether there's any potential to connect into Reynolds Lane, providing egress for both streets. Currently, the design of this street and Reynolds Lane are both dead ends. And, where possible, we like to have egress if it's a possibility. And
Here's where
So
Lane is.
Reynolds Lane is right here.
Was
And-
the suggestion there that would be routed on Lot 4 property, or try to get a agreement from the Shoebacks to take that little corner off of their property?
I think that however it would work out, it's not a requirement, it's just a recommendation to see if there is a possibility to connect them in. So that either, some lot might be able to be sacrificed from Lot 4, or or in a butter, it's just a recommendation to see if there's any possibility.
And we'll look at that, you know, take some geometry into account of what seems to make sense with maneuvering because of the way this road is. You've got a wetland. We'll have that will trigger an Army Corps permit to address that wetland crossing. It'll be below the DEP threshold, but we'll need to submit the notification to the Corps and then just see how the geometry works to make that maneuver almost a U-turn back around to Reynolds Lane.
Yeah, the reason for that, from my point of view, is always a safety concern. You know, in the event of a blockage
Sure.
on the road,
Yep.
you've got another egress.
Yep.
Access for an emergency vehicle, this type of thing. I think beyond that, isn't that the predominant thought?
Yep.
Public Works is saying.
And then a note from the planning department, for the planning board, we would recommend that you guys do a site visit. I think, in the time that I've been here, we haven't done any site visits for subdivisions, but I haven't been here for any sketch plans. We do think that it's a valuable piece of the process and would be, nice to maybe get back in the habit of doing sometime between sketch and preliminary.
Well, I think that a site visit would be practical here, but I'd like to think that we would have a little more definition on things like we just talked about before we did that.
Sure.
So yeah, sometime maybe leading up to the preliminary, as you decide, yeah, this is my preliminary package, we could get on the agenda and do it then as part of that
Okay.
process. You agree?
I don't object to that.
It's not a big field trip.
I want to stand right there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could do it right away there, you still have to figure out a hammerhead for a turnaround.
I don't know where you'll be, I can't imagine you've got this all staked out yet in terms of the road and all of that.
No, I mean, they would have done some topographic work, but I don't think they would have left, any remains of anything that's very notable to use as a site walk. So we'd have to take another trip, but that's planned.
Interesting question,
Okay.
George. Do you think you need, if you did connect the roads, could that alleviate the need for the hammerhead?
If you could connect the roads, you could alleviate the hammerhead. If you could have a driveway coming up to lot number four, then that way you can just come around this way, it becomes a loop.
Right.
I think from an emergency or secondary means of access is one thing. I think, we would have to look into the rights to use Reynolds Lane,
Right.
a little deeper to, start to go down that path, to use it as as more of a bona fide access route to the subdivision.
Sure. Yeah, those abutters may not welcome that.
Right.
Good point. Yeah, I'm just saying, just to close out on the thought of the site visit, I think the three members here are certainly interested in doing that. I'd like to have, if we go up there, something that helps us visualize, oh yeah, this is where lot 4 would be.
Oh, certainly. We would stake at least the center line and some
Yeah.
front property corners or, prominent features, to go up along through the road.
Terrific.
That's pretty typical.
Yeah.
And that would, we could, just as we are working up a preliminary plan, could submit a draft copy of that into planning staff and request
Yeah,
a site visit. Okay.
perfect. That would be,
Yep.
that'd be welcome.
And then I think, the only thing that I can think of that would be helpful to us would be to get, if you have any other feedback or thoughts on the 3 potential waiver requests. It's certainly, it's not a preliminary plan yet for you to formally act on those, but any thought, discussion, or guidance would certainly be great.
So again, I was trying to give you a steer on the stormwater
Yep.
management plan.
Yep.
Right?
Okay,
So I think if you can address the concern for abutters.
Yep.
uh,
certainly,
That would,
I agree, and the soils, if you're gonna have to do test pits anyway.
right,
exactly, I'm open to that.
okay, so we'll,
As it gets along there, start looking at where a building envelope would be in relationship to that as well.
right, and then, so, yeah, what we'll plan on doing is when we submit for our preliminary subdivision application, we'll lay out, a justification for that, so you can formally act on
On
them.
the face of it, I don't see any real problems with it.
Did the
Okay,
staff
excellent.
in their review have any thoughts on
Fuel
those
the open
three
space
waiver
15%.
requests?
Yeah, I've
Figure out where that gets subtracted.
I didn't get a chance.
Got here
I'm sorry
with
to
a-
see your
Sure.
memo.
asterisk,
I just noted in the memo that the applicant had requested them.
Yeah.
Staff is always hesitant about granting a stormwater waiver.
So you have the same sensitivity as I do?
Yes.
That's the one,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
And I think that,
Ever since the storms of almost
Sure.
2 years ago now, it's like.
Yep.
yep, so as stormwater will continue to be an issue and will continue to increase.
Increase in.
And you've had a couple applications now that have asked for a stormwater waiver and hasn't been granted. So I think
Yeah.
that, you have the past precedent certainly behind you.
Yeah, I just think it's the degree, that's all.
Sure.
I know it's not an inexpensive undertaking.
Yep.
But I had a couple of other questions, if that's,
certainly.
if you're at that point.
I'm at whatever point you guys want me to be.
Just, maybe it's just a bookkeeping issue, but when I looked here at the who's who, can you clarify, or in the next submission, the relationship between Mike Mazoian and Fomez Development Company? It says the applicant's Fomez Development Company, and yet this fellow, Mr. Mazoian, is the one who's given you authorization to be the.
He is part of the Fomez LLC. He's one of the two individuals.
That doesn't come through from the paperwork he
Okay.
submitted. It says who the agent is, but somehow his name needs to tie to that.
I got you. I'm looking at
Who
the
the officers
authorization.
of that
Right.
LLC or some such.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's probably a nit and can be easily taken care of. The division history, I think, we'd like to know a little more about that, but I think I understand now that it hasn't been a subdivision. You answered that
And we can certainly
part
provide
of
a,
other divisions within the past 5 years, yes, and I thought, what is that?
yeah, so we can certainly look into that a little bit. I know that Galen, either spoke to the applicant, I think maybe spoke to the applicant before, or has definitely spoken to somebody about this lot and has some answers. So I'll connect with Galen and get the planning board a little bit more detail about the
Yeah.
history of the lot.
You said acreage to be developed, TBD. Well,
I think that was more of what would end up being for roads and house lots. The
so
limit
as
of
long-
clearing a
As long
lot
as we
of
can
times.
answer that open space
Yep.
issue and all, that's fine. And then, something in here, identify the method of fire protection. I know you said it's individual wells, individual septic tanks, but then hydrants are gonna provide fire protection, and that confused me.
I will make note, and we will make sure that is clarified.
Okay, cool. Peter, George, anything else?
No.
Anything else for us that you wanted to make sure we?
No, not at the moment. We just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce the project to you and get your initial feedback. And I would say we'll, as we process the topo, start to get into a preliminary road design from a grading standpoint. That will clarify certain things if it needs to be shifted or anything needs to happen that's different from the layout of the sketch plan. We'll coordinate with planning staff and send a letter in requesting the site walk.
Nadia, did the staff get a chance to look at the net density proposal here? And 'cause
I haven't done,
we've had some questions in the past that have come up.
Yep.
That I'm still uneasy about, but,
I haven't done my own calculations on this yet,
okay.
but from what I see of the calculations that have been done, at a glance, it works for us. I will complete my own measurements as well.
and not wait for
and
the
for the-
preliminary.
Yes,
Yeah.
So
okay.
for
If
the-
there-
for
if
the
there were a
update,
problem,
we'll
we would
certainly do
flag
that.
it. I don't want them to go away
Mhm.
saying, hey, we talked about all of that.
Yep.
Okay. I know there was some talk about making it so that that net density calculation, the roads aspect of it, didn't have to apply to each individual lot. And yet, it
Yes.
still does at
Yes,
this point? Okay, that didn't change.
at this point, yes. We're working on changing that for November, but
November, all right,
we have not gotten there yet.
okay, thank you. Appreciate it,
Okay, thank you all. Have a good night.
thank you,
Thank you.
James. Fold this up. So if we could go on to the second item, number 250601, 35 Pier Road. This is a, did we, I wasn't, if I understood, we tabled this last time? So this is a kind of continued initial review.
Yes, yes, so I'm Bridget O'Brien, my father Patrick,
wanna
I know, I
just
don't think
move
I'm
it-
gonna
you
have
can
to,
move it down.
yeah,
There you go.
thanks.
It's
Don't have
pretty
that.
flexible, the arm.
Or you can take it out, yeah.
Yeah, is that does that help? Is that better?
Just pull it, there you go.
On my tiptoes. So I'm Bridget O'Brien, I'm the daughter of Patrick and Geraldine O'Brien, the owners of 35 Pier Road.
Thank you.
So I was watching, I'm actually, I live in California, so I came out for the meeting. So, a little vacation too, but, so I watched the meeting via Zoom, and my understanding from what I saw was that you were asking us to go away and think about extenuating circumstances. Is my understanding correct?
To clarify why there are.
To clarify why,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So when I thought back about it, and I know, everyone has issues that they deal with on a regular basis, right? And when I thought back to last year, my father just had kind of a beyond, number of issues. He had emergency surgery actually at the end of 2023, which led to a long recovery period coinciding with January 2024, where the flood destroyed the dock. He actually came here in June of 2024, and he was assessing the damage, and he wanted to develop a plan, and he just wasn't quite up to speed yet.
Sure.
So he was here, he cut his trip short. He wasn't able to make the progress that he had hoped. Once he got home, unfortunately, my mother was admitted to the ER, and she's been on and off of hospice. So, he's 88 years old. I'm sure we've dealt with elderly parents, and it's difficult. And so the extenuating circumstances are really that he was kind of overwhelmed with what was happening to him personally. So the majority of his time had to be spent on his health, his wife's, my mother's health. He actually owns a full-time company. He's an engineer, so he had a business on top of everything else. And as a non-resident, my father really believed it was a like-for-like replacement. He didn't understand there was a time sensitivity. He was under this great amount of duress, and he diverted his attention to that, and this fell off of his radar. He's had this house for 30 years. His intention was always to rebuild the dock. He's very proud of the house and the community in Kennebunkport, and, as many times as he's come here and visited and had some amazing memories. So it's, top of his list to do this, and when he found out that there was this limit, he was kind of beside himself. So I would hope that, you would understand this, and we're asking for you to recognize that there was just an undue amount of stress and personal issues that created these extenuating circumstances. So really, that's what the delay of the application was purely a whole bunch of unfortunate things happening. Yeah.
Can we just take a side step here, and I know that Nadia, I watched the meeting along with you from Zoom land.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't get a chance to weigh in on this, but I know Nadia, you had some report back from the town attorney saying something about what the board could and couldn't do.
Yeah, so basically the board does have the authority to grant an extension to that 1 year time period. And when we spoke to the attorney, and we agreed that that means that that 1 year is not from the date of the granting of the extension, but from the end of the original 1 year period. So it would create an extension until January of 2026 to replace the structure. But the board has the discretion to determine if there's good cause for a delay in the application, and there's not really a definition of good cause. It's really up to your determination.
So in addition to that, since I wasn't here to ask my questions, of course, I had to go look at the ordinance and say, what is the applicable section here? And I looked at, I guess it's item 5, but do I have which section it's from? It's in section 8.
And are you speaking about the section that Tim brought up as well?
Yeah.
So I did a quick read through, because it seems like it was going to come up, and
Yeah.
my interpretation is that is only pertaining to structures that, let me pull this up, structures that are non-conforming due to setback requirements, and maybe one other. Both of the docks that you'll be hearing about tonight are non-conforming due to the zone that they exist in. So my interpretation is that section is not applicable due to the limitations on structures it governs. So let me pull that up too, so I can read it out here.
So I'll just after you pull it up, I can read it.
So this says, section A says, a structure which is non-conforming due to lot coverage, height, or setback requirements may be reconstructed, expanded, or enlarged.
I'm reading something else here.
Yep, you're in section B, I think.
I'm in section A, 5A.
5, okay.
Reconstruction or replacement of a non-conforming structure.
This is 8.5A. Yep.
I wish I had the rest of it, only printed
Okay.
5.
That's okay, I've got it.
Okay.
A building or structure other than a single-family dwelling or an accessory apartment, is that what you're looking at right now?
I only have a printout.
May I look at it?
Yeah, sorry about that. Pardon my reach.
That's right.
Reconstruction or... Yes, okay. Reconstruction or replacement of a non-conforming structure. Any non-conforming structure which is located less than the required setback from a lot line or the normal high water line of a water body, etc., and which is removed, damaged, or destroyed by more than 50%. So that's the section that I read too.
Yeah.
And I think that this is only governing non-conforming structures due to their nature, due to their relationship with the setback. So, and like I said before, these structures are non-conforming due to the zone that they're in.
So let me ask though, before we go too far, where is the 1 year limitation that you're speaking to?
Sure, so that
'Cause
is,
this is where I found the 1 year.
yes, so that's section 8.8, non-conforming uses. Under B, that section, resumption prohibited, a lot, building, or structure in or on which a non-conforming use is discontinued for a period exceeding 1 year, or which is superseded by a conforming use, may not again be devoted to a non-conforming use, except that the planning board may, for good cause shown by the applicant, grant up to a 1 year extension to that time period. This provision, yeah, so that's...
I guess I would, the next thing, if I was by myself, I'd go look at the definition of use. Because to me, this is a non-conforming structure.
So we did talk about that with the attorney. The attorney does agree with our interpretation. It's kind of a structure and a use. But we are in agreement with the attorney about and defining this as a use.
If an applicant came before the board with this property or a similar property with a velocity zone and wanted to add a dock, we would say no.
Today.
That's correct, yes.
Right. This is only
Right.
because it would be grandfathered. You're allowed
Yeah.
to reconstruct.
Right. And the issue here is the application is 6 months behind with the application deadline.
Well, for my own edification, I know you're reading that, but as a lay person or someone who's a resident or not a resident, where is that information? Because I did look at the
Town
website
ordinances.
and I saw,
Yep, so this is in our town ordinances and our
Okay.
E-code, and I'm happy to send you an email with that
Okay.
information as
You're
well.
saying it's in section 8.8?
Yes, 8.8 non-conforming uses. So Article 8 is the article of our ordinance that governs, is non-conformance and vested rights, so it's all dealing with.
I'm happy to talk to the attorney on this, but I think that this is a non-conforming structure and not a non-conforming use. And I think that section 5 here is the applicable paragraph. So I think that people have up to 18 months on this. I don't know what to tell you beyond that. I'm happy to talk to the attorney about it.
I think that we can certainly go back and get a quick,
But can I just say, if it's 18 months or the board can extend it beyond a year, we're
Yeah.
still within that window.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're really just down to, do you want to grant the extension so that they can finish the dock?
so,
That's really the question.
and I think that, a point here as well is I believe, and I apologize, I did not delve into that section before coming to the meeting tonight, but I believe that 18-month window is to actually replace the structure.
That's correct.
Oh, actually, no, I see it, provided a
It says
permit is obtained,
Provided that
okay.
a permit is obtained within 18 months.
But I don't know, I would have to look, I don't know if the board is able to extend that 18-month period, which would be important, but I believe that we
so
are.
it's, we're not out of that.
You're
Yeah.
within the 18
We're
months.
within the 18 months, yeah.
And we have discretion, even if we think that
Just
the
structure.
attorney will hold us to 1 year to.
To grant an
grant
extension.
the-
So we can certainly
That's
get
what
a
it's-
determination from the attorney about the definition there.
Okay,
Or the board can vote tonight. I mean,
so I would move that there are compelling circumstances here that allow this to be considered by the board, and I, for one, would grant an extension. I don't know how the other board members feel about that. This is a person who's been in the community, albeit as a summer resident for nigh on 30 years.
Yeah,
It's the essence of the property is this
Yeah.
dock. It hasn't been a problem to navigation, except for this extraordinary storm. Not to say we won't have another, but I would
yeah,
grant.
I appreciate that.
I do want us to at least talk about the larger context. And that
Yeah.
context being that we now have another dock application that is appearing. Are there other structures that were damaged in the storm where the word has gone out, oh, the clock is ticking and you gotta come in?
Well, shame on us for not getting the word out earlier.
Well,
Yeah, I was wondering that, because I didn't know if there was something he missed in the mail or an email or,
Absolutely
because
not.
it's,
No, the ordinance,
okay.
that-
Yeah,
that's the source.
yeah.
we can't,
I
we can't
mean-
get someone to join the board. I don't know how we're gonna get a message out.
Yeah, because I tried to dig for it and I had trouble finding it, so
Well, I
that's,
found it in the wrong section, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
on the board.
yeah.
What were you gonna say, Peter?
To the extent that the waiver is granted additional year, does that enables them to rebuild a non-conforming dock? Or do they have to build something that is 4-foot wide conforming?
no, they can build the same dock that they had before
Which is what they're proposing to do,
within that time
Right.
period.
to replace it.
To replace
Not
it,
to enhance
exactly.
it,
No, no, it would actually be slightly smaller, honestly.
It's actually slightly
Yeah.
smaller, yeah. And with better
It is no
material.
more non-conforming.
Right,
Right.
right, marine
Understood.
grade.
Marine grade.
My father's an engineer, he's pretty stickler about, now that he, yeah.
Okay.
My inclination is to approve the extension as well.
I'll go along.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
So we're inclined to
Okay,
overlook the
Thank
date
you.
discrepancy in this case.
yeah, thank you, it's much appreciated.
and,
My father will be,
Want to hear the
Thrilled.
details of this rather than the legality of it.
okay. All right, well, thank you for your time.
So, just a reminder, I believe, and we will get extra clear confirmation on this. I believe the project has to be finished by January 2026.
Oh, that would be an issue.
Yep,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so we still, the planning board review hasn't finished,
Still
so.
have to go through the application. I think the town
Okay.
office listed a number of different things that we
Okay,
need.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
I think
I
some
had
things.
a question, so.
If you could use the
Up to the
microphone and
mic.
introduce yourself,
Sorry.
please.
So I had a few questions, because I stand up for them while I'm here.
Would you
Patrick is an
reintroduce
engineer.
yourself?
I'm Julie Campbell from Oceanside Management.
Okay.
I've been working on this property 27 years. When they're not here, I represent them. Patrick's always signed off on his work. You asked about an
If he can
engineer.
just give it a stamp,
Yeah,
that's fine.
okay.
We,
Because he looks and asks
Yeah,
questions
that's-
over and back
it's,
and
he's
forth.
certainly allowed to engineer his own
Okay,
project. We're just
okay, I
looking for that
was
stamp
asking
that
if that was
says,
okay,
Yep.
'cause that's what we've done.
we're just looking for a stamp that says an engineer looked at this, they're
Yeah.
comfortable that
And
it will
he
meet
does,
their,
and he'll text me all the
that's
time.
fine.
Okay,
Yep.
that's all I was asking.
And there were some things I saw waived, because I looked at it and there were some things to submit and something that were waived. Would that be the final one that we should go by, or would there be any other changes to additional information you need submitted for the application?
So I reviewed your application as if the planning board would grant the extension, so
Okay.
as far as staff is concerned, those are what we're looking for, those
Okay, so
items.
it's-
We suggest waivers, like you guys aren't proposing any signage
Yeah.
or floor area changes,
Or
so
lighting.
we usually suggest
Right,
waivers to
no,
those,
yeah.
but
Okay.
if a waiver is suggested, unless the board denies the waiver for a reason of their own, then we wouldn't necessarily need to see any.
Okay, so we can go off
documentation.
that as the
Yes.
additional information you need to
Yep.
complete the application. Okay, okay.
And that's not to say the board won't have questions once they review, but we
Additionally,
do our
sure.
best to give a good initial review
Okay.
of the application.
And then can you tell me the process? So there's a public hearing in 2 weeks from?
Well,
No, so there's a public hearing, the public hearing is usually scheduled for the next meeting after the board
Okay,
deems the application complete.
okay.
um,
Oh,
s-
after that.
After that
Okay.
is deemed complete, because
Okay.
once they say the application's complete, we do have a clock that starts
Sure.
ticking for when the approval has to happen and so forth, so,
Okay, so
um,
that's the
the-
next step after.
yes.
Okay. So we have to finish
So
the
if your application,
Okay.
like, if your next application materials come through and they're perfect, then we would expect that 2 weeks after your
For
next
the
meeting,
public, and
then there'll be a
Okay.
public hearing.
Okay,
Can I just bring something up? If it's possible that there's not gonna be a meeting in 2 weeks for a quorum issue,
Right.
this is now gonna be a month for them.
Yes.
And
Yes,
then it's gonna be additional 2 weeks, so now we're into mid-August before we can have a public hearing. I just don't want them to be in a situation, or maybe in the beginning of September, if we don't have a quorum, that they don't have the
Right.
permission to go, and we're
Yeah.
telling them they have to have it finished in like 3 months.
sure.
So
I
I'm
think
just
I'll
saying, I
check in.
think that needs to be worked out with all applicants.
I think we can check in. We did think there was a little bit of ambiguity whether the permit needed to be obtained or the structure needed to be completed. We leaned towards structure completed, but we'll get that settled
Yeah.
completely with the
I'm just-
attorney.
I'd be surprised if that's our position, because it certainly puts everybody at risk. If you say, okay, it's all right to start, but if you don't cross the finish line, you're gonna have to tear it all down.
yeah,
Or stuff.
sure.
Yeah, so I just think we need to clear that up. just
And we
for-
did discuss that as well, so we'll certainly get that cleared up and.
Yeah.
Two questions about that. One, is this a dock that's removed during the winter?
No,
float.
I don't think so.
Float is
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
okay.
no.
All right, and secondly, could you give some sort of confirmation on what the dimensions were before?
I think it's 12 by
Photo-
24.
Right, but I mean, it's something in the document, a photograph,
Oh,
insurance,
absolutely,
something that,
yeah, we can
just
provide that.
so we
With the-
verify that we're replacing the same or smaller size.
With the application, just attach
Yes,
some photos?
that would
Yeah,
be
that's
helpful.
easy, sure,
Thanks.
no problem. I think we did, but we can
think
give
it
you
was-
some additional if needed, or whatever you need.
Yeah,
Okay.
trying to remember if it was floating on the,
No, we had one.
Oh.
on the
The-
side.
The-
okay,
Show you.
all right,
But that's not a problem.
that's fine then, thank you.
Okay,
Staff's done a really, as always, a great job pulling this stuff apart. The waivers suggested don't trouble, I think, any of us.
Yeah.
So if, that's your best guide to being able to come here in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, depending,
okay,
and walk out with a deemed complete
yeah,
outcome.
okay,
And therefore, 2 weeks beyond that, public hearing, and
Okay.
you're done.
that would be amazing.
And
All
by,
right.
by that time, could we get the attorneys to weigh in on?
Yes, we can.
Applicability of non-conforming structure versus non-conforming use and those
Yes,
two different.
we definitely
sections.
can.
And you could join the meeting
Sharing
from
with the
Zoom.
attorney.
You don't
Okay.
have to come out.
Because
I don't
this
need to
board
fly
member
here?
is
Oh,
biased.
really? I was looking
Yes,
forward to taking
we
some
can
more
certainly
time
make
off
that
work. Okay, all right, no other questions? Thank
No,
you
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you,
Yes,
thank you.
thank
I
you so
will
much.
now.
We try to keep our
I
weather,
can give my dad good news.
it's always fun, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Another dock.
All right, we'll go on to the third item, number 250602, 58 Langsford Road.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Forrester. I'm an environmental consultant, a wetland scientist with Flycatcher. We're a small environmental consulting firm in Yarmouth. Been a consultant for over 25 years. Worked on various projects all over the state of Maine, but quite a handful of projects in town as well. It's been probably 2 years since I think the last dock project that I worked on in town. This particular one, is on Langsford Road. And it's very similar to what you just saw. The original structure was destroyed in the January storms. The property owners acquired the property in 2022. The original dock was built and permitted in 1999, so 25 years old. The elevation of the structures in there relatively low to begin with, so I think what happened is the storm surge blew in and it picked it right up off the foundation. You had an existing stone wall, so the wave action would hit that stone wall and pull and just uplift the dock right off of it. So part of the plan in rebuilding this, in which we are allowed to do now, the state of Maine, I worked with the state to change the permit by rule standards to allow for an increase in height under permit by rule. You are not allowed to change any other dimensions other than you can extend backwards into the upland to account for that height change. So if you raise your pier, you then need to reconnect it to land, and that may mean you have to add some stairs or extend it back to hit the land. So we did do that for this particular project.
But you may need to shorten it if it's gonna put you over the length.
It doesn't extend anything further seaward. It just adds a set of stairs in the beginning to come up to that pier elevation. And the other nice thing about that is it gets it off of the sill of the stone wall, which there will be another storm, and this will allow water to pass underneath the pier as opposed to hitting the wall, hitting the start of the pier and dislodging it that way. But all other dimensions of the proposed dock are the same. It did have two original cribs, timber stone-filled cribs, so they were 4x8 and 6x8, and we do propose to replace those in kind as well. As you can imagine, over the course of 25 years, the design of structures has gotten a little more robust, so we are working with Custom Float Services. They are, in my opinion, one of the best dock builders around. So they have a great reputation, build a great product, so I have no doubt that what goes back will be stronger than what was there before. In terms of your ordinance, I do tend to agree with the chair in the difference between a use, between a use and a structure. But I also do understand Nadia's point that, it was in a velocity zone, which if this were a new structure, we couldn't even come forward because the ordinance doesn't allow it. But you do allow docks as a use, and it is a structure. So I resort back to you and how the board wants to handle it. If it's any help, myself and all the other consultants and engineers in the state of Maine are simply inundated still with projects. I've never experienced anything like it before, and it's simply impossible to stay on top of everything. I mean, literally hundreds of calls came out when the storms first hit. So our ability to take on new projects and get things done in a timely manner was just blown out of the water. No pun intended.
You're addressing the issue of why the delay.
Yeah,
Why-
yeah,
why-
yeah,
Why not
exactly.
a year ago?
Yeah, yep. So we were not even contacted. The original property owner, I think, or the property owner was sort of under the same assumptions that, oh, this is just a replacement. It's a permit by rule. It's, you know, you can just get a building permit to replace this. And really unaware of how the process in the town. So as they started to go through that, they began to realize how challenging it was for an average homeowner to navigate this. And then by the time they were reaching out to contractors for help on how to address the situation, we were all just completely swamped. So, you know, I wasn't even able to get started on this until May. So we did obtain core approval, we did obtain DEP approval, and as is typical fashion for us, we obtained those permits first before coming to the board. I was also under the presumption that I had 18 months, which I believe we just snuck in underneath. So.
So can we have that same discussion on this one? Is this a situation where the owner actually has been moving out on this? They were limited by the demand built up for contractors with the storm. The contractor was on board as early as May, but, and has proceeded to get the other permits, but we're certainly beyond the 1 year, and maybe just under the 18 months in terms of.
Actually, yeah, and we obtained permits in May. We were actually started midwinter, so we'd started
Okay,
prior to that.
You started, but
Yeah.
my point is isn't that sufficient hardship to say, yes, we're not gonna single out this dock? Can we talk about the nonconformances of this dock? If you were allowed, first of all, it's in a velocity zone, you would not be allowed.
Correct.
Take away that, absent that, what about the size compared to what would be allowed there?
Yeah, your ordinance limits a width of 4 feet wide, and then a maximum length, I believe, from the highest annual tide of, I think it's 100 feet.
I believe it's
Yeah.
100, yes.
And then, you know, one fifth of the navigable channel, which we are definitely
isn't
well
an issue.
underneath. Yeah, it's a good fetch from here
What
to
is the total length?
France, so.
Looked like it was around 80, but I didn't see it in there.
So we have a 48-foot pier, a 24-foot ramp, and a 8 by 18-foot float. But the ramp does sit partially onto the float. So if you called that 16 and 24 and 48, 10, 4, 5, 6, 7, 80 feet.
So you're under, so the only nonconformity would be the float?
Is the width
The-
more than 4 foot?
4 feet wide.
Okay.
The nonconformity is the whole structure's in the velocity
That-
zone.
that's
No,
right.
no, no.
I
Correct.
asked them
Above and beyond
specifically,
that.
Absent that.
Yes.
Is this an oversized dock or no?
I believe it's,
The issue is the velocity zone.
yes,
The previous one,
Yeah.
previous application, we had multiple
yes,
issues. The size of it wouldn't have been allowed either. So
that's correct.
Just trying to,
So the
Gauge.
float, Nadia, does not count? That can be more than 4 feet wide?
correct.
I
Yeah.
believe the float is okay.
It's the pier has to be 4 feet
200
wide
square feet, I
and
think.
200 square feet. Yeah,
And
exactly.
the total
And-
width, it's where it attaches
Mm-hmm.
to the line.
Yep.
And you'd have to add 4 feet for the steps.
Yeah, even if you added in the 4 feet, we're
You're still
still
under.
within that.
We've had
Actually,
some
the
projects
the
where
4
if
feet
they're
wouldn't
under
count because
one-
they're above the highest annual tide.
Okay.
It's only that portion from the high tide seaward that counts towards the
Technically, you're also
100-foot
increasing
maximum.
impervious surface now.
On a small
We
lot.
check a lot of boxes here.
Yeah.
We just got away with adding stairs, excluding stairs from impervious surface
Yes,
when you raise things up.
that's right.
Let me double check that.
Probably wasn't on a pier, but are we in that borderline situation where we have to worry about that?
I don't think so.
Okay, so-
Nadia, what were you saying?
I was just gonna say, I actually need to reread the language. I think it might just be stairs to a dwelling, but I will double
Or a
check.
structure?
Well, hopefully not,
Stairs to a use.
to a
Yes.
structure, not to a use. Please.
I
Feel like we all have to.
Addressing that, I think, based on the same criteria that we used in our interpretation of the ordinance for the last dock,
Yeah.
that we would apply it the same way here and accept the,
So we exempt exterior stairs to access/egress the first floor of a residential structure
right.
Oh. All right. So you wouldn't accept stairs?
to a dock,
You wouldn't
no.
allow a dock to be raised and add stairs?
I mean, if they meet the lot coverage requirements,
I think,
then that's its own
We
situation.
had a dock where everything together came to 101 feet, and they kept trying to shave, and there was no place to shave.
anyway. He's putting it on top of rocks.
Yes,
I understand these stairs.
it's biblical.
You were saying you were inclined to,
Go ahead and allow this to move forward, that is within our look at the 18.
I'm inclined as well.
yeah, so we would.
So now we
grant
have to look at the
extension, which
application.
is in our power, and we're still gonna be looking a little further at this business of, is that paragraph applicable that would allow it to be 18 months in terms of the permit being granted?
I think the extension
Understood.
is the cleanest way forward, just
Oh,
because
for tonight it
you
is, sure.
would actually be exceeding those 18 months by the time a permit was able to go through, given the planning board's public hearing and
Oh.
approval process. We'd be well into August, so,
like
this,
it.
if you'd like, this is definitely the cleanest way for that to,
No, by
to
all
go through.
means. I think that what the board is saying is that we're inclined to treat this the same way as we did at the last one. And,
Very good.
if anything, this one has had significantly more engineering already done on it.
The comments on the memo from the planning office, still,
When did those come out? Because I haven't.
I emailed it to you on
unfortunately seen
Monday,
You did?
yes.
so I think they're pretty straightforward. There's things like setback lines, topography. There is a question about parking, because I think there had been parking there at some point. They're all outlined in this document, which was June 30th, which, if you were, as no pun intended, swamped as you say you are, you may not have had a chance to read it.
Yeah, they may have come to a colleague of mine and I just didn't see him or
That's
something,
fine.
perhaps.
So just going through those, and that would help toward making the application complete.
Those would make
Great,
it complete.
They would.
okay. Very good. I'll make sure I'll go over that and have updated plans for you for the next meeting.
That'd be terrific.
Great.
Great.
You want to talk about a waiver requests here?
There are several in there. Lighting, signage,
Curbs.
not adding any lights or signs.
No.
The way I'd like to think about this is that there's a list of more than a dozen submission requirements, depending on what the application is. That covers applications from docks to homes to the whole spectrum. So it's reasonable to assume that not all of those items are required for every application. And what's going on now is that the staff is going through at the time an application is received and saying, well, here's the submission items that they didn't send anything in on. I mean, most of the time, what we're finding is that that's because they are not applicable. But we're
Right.
being asked to formally scrutinize that whole list of 12 or more submission items.
And document.
Right. Is there a signage gonna be required for a dock? No, it's not applicable. This isn't, a new subdivision that's got a road on it. whatever.
Is that the easiest way forward for us, just to respond back to that and say, yes, we agree that, we need a waiver, or these are non-applicable items?
The easiest thing to do is to enumerate those dozen or so items
Mhm.
that are in, do you have the applicable section of the ordinance? The submission items?
Yes.
We have
We
that.
don't have that checklist yet, do we?
I actually did add it to the application. So I just took our memo, I took out any comments,
And
and I
added the
slapped that
checkbox
into
in
the
there.
So
application.
we're
looks
getting
good.
better about making sure the applicant has that clearly in front of them up front, but
Yep.
to avoid delays.
And
You
it's,
just
it's
took that-
possible that I updated that after you submitted the initial application, so if you didn't see it, I mean, that's not, this was just a couple weeks ago, so.
So if we could get, Tim, that checklist, and you just go down through and say, on each one, submitted, not, request waiver.
Okay.
It looks like there are
E-
6 that there are
easy
comments
enough.
outstanding. Those are the priority addresses. I don't see any problem with any of the waiver requests.
They're all straightforward things like
Okay.
lot lines, setbacks.
Yep.
Topography,
Yeah,
stamp
those are
from an
pertinent.
engineer.
Okay.
And you should,
All right.
I'm sure you'll have.
Great. So the engineer stamp portion of the project is, in my opinion, or in my understanding, is really related to the flood permit, which is issued by the code office, not by the planning board. So is it,
Can you comment on that, Nadia?
Yeah, so we get into kind of tricky territory if the planning board approves something that the code office wouldn't necessarily approve. So we just like to see and make sure that, generally, if you'll need engineered plans eventually, so generally we just like to see, yes, an engineer is comfortable with this design.
Yep.
We're good moving forward. The planning board, it's not within their scope to review the plans from an engineering perspective, but it does help us to see that, these are all the ducks that we need to get in a row to approve
Right.
the application ultimately.
I bring it up because, well, for one, the flood ordinance at the state has changed. So the model ordinance no longer requires a PE. The town did adopt the 2024 flood maps and flood ordinance, but the new ordinance allows for design professionals such as myself to approve these types of structures. If it were a commercial dock, it would still require a PE stamp, but for residential. But it's very much like shoreline zoning. The town has the discretion to adopt the ordinance. They can make it more strict. So your hands aren't tied to change the ordinance, but all other towns are looking into that.
Sure, and that wouldn't happen for us till November.
wouldn't happen
We do
for a
have
while,
a town
right?
meeting form of government. But the board does not have to get engineered plans, but as of right now, our floodplain ordinance does still require that professional
That an engineer review it
Yes.
for its structural stability, yes. And the only reason why I bring it up is because it's sometimes can be a challenge to get that PE stamp in a shorter period of time when you're not the PE. So, and that could delay our project, because I have to find someone who's willing to review this. The design plans from Custom Floats are engineered design over, the life of the company. So I can provide more details. I don't know if they have a stamp on those ones.
I think it's not the board that needs to be convinced of this, though. It's, who is it that wants to see that stamp?
Ultimately, it is the code
Ultimately.
officer.
Yeah, so I think this discussion needs to happen with the code officer that says, well, this is what we're prepared to provide, and if the answer is the code officer needs to see a PE stamp, then he needs to know about that now.
Sure.
That's
So from our perspective, this is similar to how we require, a cross-section of a road when we get a subdivision plan.
Right.
We need to see at the planning board level that this will meet the requirements of your ordinance.
Correct. Right, and you're saying that our ordinance requires a PE stamp.
Yes,
Okay.
professional engineer review, yes.
So unless there's an ability to waive that by the code officer, then he's gonna need that stamp in order to get his permit.
Yes,
I'm just trying to make
from
this
the,
as
yes,
easy
from
to-
the code
to
office.
understand as possible.
To get my floodplain permit, I need a PE stamp. But for my site plan review, I don't believe I do.
Sure, but it's a little bit circular, yes. In order to get the
That's
actual
right.
building permit, you
Right.
need the
And having
floodplain
had this
approval.
discussion on the record, if you're proceeding at risk to the extent that constitutes a risk.
And this has come up in our conversations before. I think it is worth, we've been pretty busy for the past couple months as a board, but I think it is worth discussing where the board review falls in terms of the floodplain management.
Right.
It has come up multiple times now. So it's certainly something to put on the docket for future discussion. But I would say the board can't waive that requirement, but
No.
nor is it a submission requirement.
That's
So-
right. It's not, it wouldn't prevent us from saying, yeah, this is an approved application. Caveat, you're gonna have to convince the code officer, he's gonna need
Oh,
a
I'll have to
PE
get it for the code
on
officer
his-
anyway, right?
Yes.
Right. So I will do everything to try to get that done
On the
before,
record. I think-
in order to
I
make the
feel like
next
I've
meeting.
done my due diligence.
I would say yes, you could add it as a condition in the
Condition of the
final.
findings of fact.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We've already implicitly got that condition in that.
I would encourage an explicit condition though. Yes.
You're worried about it.
I do appreciate that because it could potentially save time simply
Oh, it might be a
in
lever that you could
moving
use
this
to,
project along, yeah.
move your position in the queue, for the PE stamp as
Right,
well. Yeah,
right.
okay, all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's just be clear, where are we? We've said we're gonna continue the initial review pending updated document?
Yes?
Or are we saying that this is so minuscule as to say that information will come in and
I think if the information comes in that is requested by the planning office, topography, setbacks,
then we're good?
lot lines, I think we're okay. The parking issue,
And, you know,
All of that sounds-
We go through this sometimes, but I would encourage you again not to deem an application complete until you have all
Because
of the
ti-
materials in
because
front of
timing
you.
issues.
Right, but the timing in this case is we're likely not gonna have a meeting the next time. And I don't want
Yes.
them to incur, because of my inability to support the meeting, I don't want them to incur.
Sure, and I understand the
on a-
issue.
on what
but-
we think is a small point.
Yes, I do understand the challenge, but, again, you know, I would encourage you not to deem the application complete. And I'm certainly like, I understand we'll check in with the attorney about the permit versus actual completion of the project issue in terms of that
I
extension.
think we've already solved that problem for tonight.
For tonight, yes, but my understanding is that your concern is that if we continue to push out, the applicant might not have time to finish the project, or you
No, I think it's
just
just
concerned
gonna
about
be
general
delayed, he's
timeline.
only got so many months before the bad weather comes.
Sure.
He's doing this work.
Is it feasible to deem it complete at the beginning of the next meeting and then proceed to the next step right after that?
So,
have to
so
announce a
this is
public
the,
hearing.
this
We
is
haven't
the,
found a way to do that.
so this is the challenge, is we have to have a public hearing.
Yep.
And after the application is voted complete, we have, a strict clock in terms of when that hearing has to be scheduled and when the application has to be approved. So especially if we will be missing the next meeting, we do definitely start to run up against,
Oh,
The
That
problem,
clock.
the problem is if they deem it complete, the public hearing has to be in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If there's not gonna be a meeting in 2 weeks.
well, I think the
You-
public
you-
hearing has to be, it's like 30
well,
days.
but
It's
I'm
a
just saying,
little,
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to avoid.
and
So that you're not in that. It's a little, yes,
I'm,
it's a little
I'm
crazy.
stretching here, but is it feasible to well, no, never mind.
the public has a right to a hearing.
Oh, yeah, no,
And-
I'm not trying to
and
say that shouldn't happen.
In
I'm
order
trying to
to be
figure out
able
how
to
to
comment on
accommodate all
it,
of
they need
this.
to know that they have a
Is there a
complete
way for us to
application.
deem it complete condition on receiving this checklist within the next
Or
3
you
days?
schedule the public hearing and if it's not
I'm
complete.
just saying, we're gonna make that,
if
completion
you say
condition
it's
on that.
complete and then they do the public hearing and bring in the extra materials and you see the extra materials, which I don't think this is, you know, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but, and you see them and you say, actually, this is not what we're
No,
looking
this
for,
is
it's
not-
not complete.
Yeah.
We do hit that deadline, and if
Then what?
we pass, I think it's 40 to 60 days, I can't remember which one, from saying it's complete to having to approve or deny the application.
Yeah.
So if you say it's complete without having the materials, and then the materials come in and the board isn't satisfied, if you hit that deadline without having satisfactory materials, they do have to start the process over again because of a denial. So it's cleaner to wait till you actually have the
Wait, let's just
materials.
go over it.
Could you wait? I mean, do you need it tonight?
No, I don't
So you're just-
I
you
don't need it
would
tonight.
like
The,
But you, because of all this, you
we're
don't.
just trying to keep it moving along.
No, well, yeah.
It sounds like the list, if it's as simplistic as it sounds, we can have new plans to you tomorrow. I mean, it's pretty easy to pull that information in there and add it to the file. But
Sure.
that's up to the board.
What say you, gentlemen?
Just trying to think, if it was submitted tomorrow and we did not find it complete, then they've got to come back in a month.
That's correct.
First week of
August 6th.
August.
Yes.
And presumably at that point, they would have had enough feedback to know what's gonna be complete and approved. And it gets approved then, and second meeting in August is the public hearing. That gets them to that point.
That's if we,
Yes.
that's whether we find it complete or not.
No, if you find it complete,
Yeah,
and then we get, but for the 6 items, and they deliver the 6 items tomorrow,
yeah,
and we find they're perfectly conforming to our expectations, then the public hearing is the first week of August, not the second.
we're skipping that meeting. No, we're not.
We're
We-
The
skipping
public
the,
hearing is the
August
first week in
We
August.
would have
Got
to
it.
deem it complete.
Yeah.
Pending this stuff.
that's right.
And
So
then-
save them 2 weeks.
So, yeah,
Which could come across Nadia's desk tomorrow. And
Good.
But the board can't, what
We
I'm
still-
understanding, the board
still don't
can't
get to
meet
discuss
in
it
2
without
weeks
it.
because we won't have a quorum.
right,
So-
right, but we
There's
can,
no board meeting in 2 weeks, everyone. There's no board.
Yes, I think we've covered that issue.
But
So-
there are openings and
Anybody want to join? You can-
so, yeah, we're already a month
get to
out.
join in
So-
these
so-
exciting
so-
conversations.
so
Really.
do me a favor. Let's be as clear as we can be about what precisely what information we need in hand
Okay.
tomorrow, the next day.
Because you haven't
to
had a
deem this
chance to look
complete.
at that minute.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
So going down that list, the outstanding comments and waivers that are gonna be suggested. Lot line dimensions and zone information is not included. The applicant should include these items to help the planning board review. Setbacks are not included.
Right,
No
for example,
topography has been added to the plan.
The issue, that would be like the issue with the, no dock can be closer than 25 feet to an abutter. Those
Just so we
types.
see those setback lines.
Yep.
We can say, oh, there's 30 feet. There is a question on the parking, and so
What
parking,
is that
loading,
question?
unloading
What is-
areas should be indicated with dimensions. And the reason there's a comment, it says, parking and unloading plan has not been submitted. The applicant has simply stated delivery of supplies will be via Langsford Road. There does appear to be a parking on site according to the town GIS, but the board should confirm the construction will not obstruct the street.
Let's, rather than
Okay.
requiring something on that, let's just talk about that. How do you envision getting materials?
Yeah, well,
In
the
and
ramp and float naturally come by water. So it's just the pier, so it'd be individual stringers and other miscellaneous sized items that would have to come out onto site.
So you're gonna have a
And
delivery truck is gonna come
You
with
can
these.
pull right into the driveway,
Okay?
You're saying it's a non-problem,
not a problem at all, yeah.
all right.
That
This is
that works
not
for me.
someone thinking it would be a problem, this is just a routine question that's come down. the road.
Understood, yeah.
It's a narrow road with one way in and out, so just like to, confirm that no blockage will happen, but that works
Right,
for me.
and this discussion allows someone to come at the public meeting who's in the butter and say, well, no, I don't, I'm worried about that truck.
Yeah,
Can you
right.
tell me who these people are, what time of day they're coming, and
Or medical emergencies
That's
or
just
something
fair.
like that, yeah.
Another thing we should confirm is stormwater. Is there gonna be any stormwater or wastewater issues?
There are none.
Okay? Can't imagine there were. Building plans have to be stamped by a professional engineer, and as we've discussed, that is really a criteria that allows the issuance of a building permit, which we don't do.
Yep, so we can throw
We'll
that in
make
as
it
a condition.
in the findings of
Yes.
fact.
Thank you.
So really, what we're looking for then is lot lines,
Yep.
setbacks, topography. And
Is there a plan here that
Easy enough.
allows us to,
I think you've done a lot of work, you probably have that information.
Yeah, and I apologize, usually there's a little more detail on those plans, so it should be there.
let's, if we just take a minute and look at that plan, maybe it's
Might be on one of them.
gonna be obvious that it's a problem or it's not a problem.
You know what? Lot lines, setbacks. No, that's a driveway.
Yeah, the lot lines are shown, they just don't have the dimensional standards on them.
Yeah.
No, that's an existing, this is what we're doing.
And there should be we can easily add the dimensions to the,
Do
To
a
the-
topo overlay on it?
yep, that's no problem.
It's your belief that if you add that information, we're not gonna say, oh my goodness, that's a problem?
No, I mean, adding the property lines and the dimensions of those lines have no impact, no bearing on the project.
If you got a ruler, I can sketch it in.
Oh, okay.
No.
Let's do
The zoning,
something
the
for-
zoning information is very easily added in. Topography is publicly accessed, so that's easy.
Here's what I'm gonna suggest, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
In spite of,
I like the Mr. part.
in spite of, suggestion from the planning office, I would make a motion to deem this application complete pending the completion of those items that we just reviewed.
You say pending, conditioned on.
Conditioned
Yeah,
on those items we just reviewed. I feel satisfied with the information about the parking. I didn't go through the waivers, but I'm assuming that there is no lighting, there's no signage.
None.
Okay.
Floor plan, yeah.
Floor plan.
Not, you know.
No, nothing on the floor, nothing in the
Okay.
house, nothing on the floor
No,
plan.
all right. I would say that, with those conditions being met, that we should approve this application and move to a public hearing at our next meeting.
I agree.
I agree.
Great.
Is there a second?
I will second it.
There we go.
Thank you.
All right.
Aye.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
So you're saying public hearing scheduled first week of August?
6th of August,
Next meeting.
All right.
my mother's birthday.
Oh,
I know.
we have a case manager for that?
Do we have a case? Do we have a case?
Could we?
ma'am?
Could we have a case
Yeah,
manager?
I'll take that.
Peter, you're the best.
Thank you, Peter. Do we have a case manager for the
Yes.
35 Pure Road? From last week?
Yes, I sent it to,
Recall.
We
I
don't.
sent it to Tim at flycatcherllc.com.
don't. You want to become the dock guy? I used to be the dock guy. I hate being the dock guy.
You want to take a vote, Peter?
What's that?
Would you be willing to take a
Yep, I'll
vote?
forward it over again.
Thank you.
Any constellation, I have two still piddling along.
Item number 4, 250203, 370 Mills Road.
Hi there. I'm Susie Wolf. I'm representing Gabi Jacobs in the approved lot split at 370 Mills Road for the final hearing, I guess, right? Yes.
Public hearing.
This is a public hearing.
Public hearing.
You're hoping it's the final one.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's what I assumed from the last time, yeah.
I don't have any questions on this one, Mr. Chairman.
Could you just remind us what this, you're
It's
getting up
a
plan
pretty
shows?
straightforward lot split, but it's also a pre-approved subdivision from 1977. So it's considered a major revision, but it's actually pretty simple.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's that, it's on Route 9 near Goose Rocks Beach. It's in the Goose Rocks zone.
George, you're the case manager.
I am.
You satisfied with?
I
where
am,
we
we've
are
been
on
over
this?
this one.
So if there's no questions from the board, are there any, open a public hearing? Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak to this? Anyone in Zoom have a hand raised?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. That will close the public hearing. Seems like it's as straightforward as you said.
Mhm.
Do we have a motion from the board?
Go ahead.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And when can I pick up the signed plan to provide that to the attorney?
So I don't believe we have a findings of fact.
Do not have a findings of
So-
fact.
So if you can, so we'll need to, the findings of fact will need to be read at the next meeting, and then you can pick them up and bring them to the Registry of Deeds. And so that will be in tandem with the plans. They'll go together.
So those will be read at the first meeting in August.
6th of August.
Okay, so that's gonna set us back a little bit, but that's fine. Okay, thank you very much.
Have an opening on the
Thank you,
planning
Ms.
board.
Wolf. Yeah.
Sorry?
Have an opening on the planning board. You could create a quorum. Have an opening on the planning board. Guys must be golfers.
Right, so we're up to item 5, 250602, 19 River Road, Cape Arundel Golf Club.
Seems like it should work.
Oh, it may be powered off. Check the button on the side.
Yep,
Sorry about that.
it's all right. Look at that, all right. Mr. Chairman, good evening. Bill Walsh with Walsh Engineering. I'm here on behalf of Cape Arundel Golf Club. With me, behind me, to my left is, and to your right, is Lena Toby from Walsh Engineering, Sean Gobin, who is the general manager of Cape Arundel Golf, and Ryan Emmerich, who is the superintendent of Cape Arundel Golf Course. I did the presentation last time, and
I watched.
you watched,
After-
good?
The next day. Yeah.
Good. You didn't have anything else to do that day, apparently, 'cause you listened to me.
It was required reading.
So I'm assuming I don't need to go through that again. What I do have are some changes that, that we have since the last meeting. And those came about due to meetings that we had with the Maine DEP, Maine Geologic Service, and, oops, look at that, press that too many times. And the Army Corps of Engineer. We did a site walk out on the site, and we received comments from them, and with those comments, we've made some sort of what I'm gonna call minor adjustments to the plans, and I'll run through those really quickly for you. So we provided this package, and generally what they are, some landscape plan updates. Area C1, which is actually this area right up in here along the river. We have some, whole one, just some design modifications, some relatively simple design modifications. The department asked us to deal with what we call end effect issues, meaning they didn't want us to square off the revetments, but rather round them off and lower the height of them, and it decreases the any potential for erosion around out around the end of a revetment.
Minimizes eddies.
Exactly what that does. There are some shell middens, which I think I spoke about, and I'll talk to that, and some wetland pact revisions. So these are some landscape revisions. This is actually I'm sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, pressing the wrong button. We have some landscape revisions. This was a request of the department to diversify some plantings in some places. This is the parking lot at Cape Arundel here. Actually, this is probably a better image. That's the clubhouse. This is the parking lot. And we have some plantings that we're installing here, but also there's a wooded area along here that we are installing some additional plantings in. Basically, they go beneath the mature growth trees that are there and help to stabilize that shoreline, or that it's more of a slope than the shoreline. It's up above the shoreline stabilization. So that was one request of the department.
Quick question on those, is you putting in any irrigation for them?
We are not. This area is all naturalized where we're putting these in, and these are all natural plantings that we shouldn't have any issues with watering those. If necessarily, obviously, they'll water them when they plant, but beyond that. Yep. This is the area C1, C3, which is along hole 1. We have what I'm gonna call an open area here. There's no trees. There's trees here, and there's a tree right there. And this plan shows it a little better. There's a tree right there, and there's a tree right there. And this was through a discussion with the department, the DEP and MGS as we walked out here, was to actually bring the revetment along this space, but actually bring it in this 100 feet. And in this location, we're actually gonna bury this. So this will be similar to the other ones that we have. It'll be exposed along the river here, and as we push into the slope, we will bury it over here, and then it will come back out. And this allows us to save a portion of the marsh that is here. That again, was a request of the department through our discussions with them, and it certainly seemed like a reasonable approach. The real issue is that along the rest of this, as you go this way and as you go this way, there are trees in both directions that we're, that's, this area just doesn't happen to have trees. So we were able to do that here in this location.
You're really pushing, this is like a state-of-the-art project that you're doing here. I'm thinking somebody would have a doctorate thesis out of this.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
Yeah, we've spent a fair amount of time thinking about this, and honestly, the weaving through the regulatory process, that we not only have this at the local level, but we also have it at Army Corps, DEP.
Well, it sounds like more than a bureaucracy, though. You've gotten some expertise.
Absolutely.
Out of this. And,
absolutely.
That's encouraging.
This is the area that I was talking about, and where that's going to poke in is actually right in this space between these trees here. Doesn't look very big there, but it's actually about 100 feet sort of between those trees in that location. This is the end effect thing that I was talking about before, and again, this is just, some of these are actually, this one is actually going to be buried, but we are still bringing this, I'll say curling it back into the shoreline. It'll be buried so that at some date, way down the road, if that happens to erode and get exposed, that end effect will be taken care of. And this is it. This is back on that hole 1 area. This is the first tee box. Actually, we've got a section here, and we're just doing the same thing there, which is just curling the end of it. And when we curl it, we reduce the elevation in that as well, so to reduce any eddies or erosive velocities there. So this is the shell midden location. We have had communications through Maine Historic Preservation. This was identified by our archaeologist who did the study on this, and you may know Tim Spar is the one that actually did the investigation out here. He's a local guy, but he's the archaeologist. There was 2 shell midden locations that we found. This is the one we're talking about here, and there are some shells. You can see sort of those specks along there are the shells that are there. This was really what I'm going to call the minor one of the 2. And what we're doing up on the upper right here is the shell midden would be this piece right here. We are going to put in a geotextile fabric kind of up against the edge of that, so it would be, I'm going to call it on the face of this as you're looking at it. The rocks would come forward. That's what this represents. And that will help to actually protect the shell midden over time, because this shell midden's back into the
small,
slope.
Bill? How big is small?
This one was like 10 feet wide.
Okay.
It was really, when I met Tim out there, and he goes, this is a real small one in this location. We have another one that's much larger on just down from this, but we're not doing any revetment in front of that one. It's just staying natural.
Okay.
I'm imagining that you have to be gentle around this shell midden.
Absolutely.
Is there a lot of handwork involved? Is that how you envision doing this? That seems like quite a challenge.
Yeah, it's, you know, basically what we would do is take the soil that's kind of down in these lower sections right here, and any shells that we happen to pick up on the surface get thrown back up into the, I'll say into this hole that's right there. So we're sort of putting them back behind the fabric that will go up there. So yes, it is sort of careful work in that space that we excavate any shells that we find and we put them back into that space. So
But you can't run heavy equipment over that.
what we would do, or what we will do, is to use missing the term, timber mats. So we would put timber mats. I don't know if you've seen those before, but they are probably 8x8 timbers that are cut, and they're cabled together.
Yeah.
And the equipment travels on top of that, and what it does is it disperses the load over the land, so it doesn't really impact anything beneath it by dispersing that load of the equipment.
Like D-Day.
If you say so. That's impressive.
Yeah, they do them. We use them quite a bit on. Well, we'll be using them down in the marsh areas as well, where we have to do that.
Yeah.
So they work really well. Hopefully, we'll also be doing this in the winter months when it's frozen.
You're compressing peat.
Yeah,
Down
slightly.
below, it's
Slightly, yep.
the degree to which is you're trying to minimize. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it helps to spread it out a little bit. So, in essence, we're gonna hopefully protect this midden for quite a while, until sea level rise comes, and that's a whole other story. This happens to be the other area, that we're not in fact touching, the shell midden that we're not touching. So it was found kind of in this space right here, and we don't have anything proposed in this area at all that exists right there. So, the Maine Historic Preservation was happy to hear about that, and Army Corps as well. Army Corps has a say in these shell middens and the archaeological parts and pieces of it. We have worked through with some of those changes. We've adjusted our wetland impacts. So by bringing that piece that you saw back into the upland, we've reduced some of our impacts, and this has been a discussion that continues with Army Corps right now. We had a meeting with Jana Jacobson is who we're working with on this, and talked through these impacts. We have both our impacts here, which are 14,138 square feet, and our offsets, which are these 3 rows over here. So we have marsh restoration. We have an area that we're doing marsh restoration. We have 3,735. We have marsh sill impacts below the hat, which these are actually, I'm going to call it the installation of the sill facing, if you will, that helps to protect that marsh. And then we've got, actually that's that one right there, the marsh protected by, oh, no, I'm sorry, this is the marsh behind that is in fact protected. So this is a bit of a impact and offset issue that we put together for Army Corps and DEP to look at. The other thing that we are doing, it's pretty significant, is that there are the 230,000 square feet of grass filter buffer that is going to be installed. That's the invasive areas where we're going to remove invasives, and we're going to replant natural grasses in those spaces, plus some of those landscape changes that you saw there.
I have a curiosity question on that. This is the one question I had when I watched the last meeting.
Yep.
I know from volunteering at Wells Reserve, we take school kids out on the marsh, and at one point we have them get down, we do 2 things, because you walk through a number of different habitats. And if you look at the number of plants that will grow along the river, the little river in Wells.
Yep.
There's very few.
Exactly.
I mean, basically, you've got salt marsh hay, and you've got a couple of different varieties of it. And I thought you were talking about some native grasses other than that, and I wondered what the resilience were to salt and to the tidal activity.
Sure.
Is that has it been
Yeah,
considered?
absolutely. You know, you're 100% right. So there's, I think if I understand your question correctly, in the marsh itself, there are very few grasses that grow, right? They're the ones that are the high marsh and the low marshes.
Precisely.
And they're,
very resilient.
exactly. Those are the ones that you see along any marsh. So we're not, this 230,000 square
This is
feet
upland
is
from that.
upland of that,
I
exactly.
see.
That it's, so not only do you have the marsh, but you've got the water that drains down to the marsh. And these buffers help to filter that material before it gets there.
Yeah.
So when you have a lot of invasives, and you can see this out there on the course, what happens is those invasives choke everything else out. They tend to get bigger, bushier,
Yeah.
right? And what happens is you have bare ground actually underneath those. So what this will in fact do is we'll remove the invasives and we'll plant fescues actually, and
But
those,
it's not on the marsh.
it is not
itself,
on the
it's
marsh.
up-
It's upland,
That-
exactly. Yep,
That's my confusion.
yep,
Thanks.
yeah, no worries, no worries.
I find the whole thing, it's fun to learn things late in life. It's always fun to keep learning things.
Absolutely.
I just find the subject fascinating.
Yeah.
Not one that was in my wheelhouse over the years.
Yeah, this is definitely a unique project in that we're protecting the golf course and trying to renaturalize things back, the edges of it especially, back to what they originally were. So, there was a request here, Nadia, I think you asked about this, and we did talk with Eric LaBelle about the access. We had communication back and forth with him on this. He responded and said that we had to talk to the police chief and requested coordination with, we have a North Street, potentially have a North Street access. We've shown it on the plans. That's actually a DOT request. So we end up having to go to DOT. So in essence, I guess we'd request that coordination be a condition of our site plan approval. We're working on it. I don't see it as a huge hurdle to hop over, but that's what we would ask. And then lot coverage calculations, I think that was one of the other requests.
Yeah.
That we had.
Yeah.
And as you know, in that shoreland zone, we need 20% less than 20% lot coverage. The existing right now is that 4.76. With our changes, we're at 5.37 percent. So we're well below that 20% coverage. I think that's it for changes. I thought all relatively minor, so. Happy to answer any questions.
And we left this as a continued initial review last time, correct?
It was.
Yeah, okay.
I thought,
This
It's
is a public
This is a
hearing.
public hearing.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a public.
Yeah, yeah.
Should be a public.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I
this
do
was
have a
approved.
question.
Yes.
You were supposed to come up with a name for this whole thing.
I didn't, it's gonna be the Walsh revetment. That's the
Alright,
best I
alright.
can do.
There wasn't a hidden agenda there.
No,
You
just
have
that was
someone in
one of the
mind.
things that he said, that we told him he had to do. because
Yeah.
It was very impressive.
It is impressive. So if there's no more questions, I think we would open the public hearing then. Is there someone in the room who'd like to speak? No, hearing none. Is there anyone online, Zoom, who has a hand raised?
No hands raised.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. It was an excellent presentation, very thorough, and it doesn't surprise me that there aren't any questions, but you never know.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion
Did
that
I
we,
close the,
I'd like to make a motion
please, sir.
that we, well, I was gonna say the application is complete, but that's not the motion I wanna make. What, I wanna make the other one.
To approve the
To
application?
appro- To approve the application, thank you.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we're really anxious to see.
See it happen.
Very
Proceed.
impressive.
I would actually like to go out for a little tour and do a before and after.
Do you want a cart?
Yeah.
I'll take
see
it in a
the-
car
Yeah,
A cart,
with a caddy.
yep.
that's what I'm hearing.
I would love to see some of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating.
Talk to
Yeah.
Sean and Ryan. I'm sure
I'm
they'd be.
sure you're already doing this, but you're documenting this. I can see, you can see the photographs on a wall over the years, 20 years from now. This is what we thought would be sufficient.
Right?
It's not quite the big dig, but it is an engineering
Very,
marvel.
very challenging.
Yep.
Really well done.
I think there's probably places around, all up and down the coast that'd be interested in seeing how this work proceeds.
Yeah, I do too. Great, thank you all. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Who's the case manager on this?
Peter is, and Peter has a draft of the findings,
That's
but I
right.
think you got a
And you've
little too
got-
much to do based on what we heard.
You've got two docs right now?
2 dogs and this.
And do
This is done though, but for all intents and purposes, other than the waivers.
you want me to pick up one of the docs, because mine are languishing?
No, I mean, I'm happy to do that. It's either, they're,
I think this one is done. Do you think it needs any changes based on what we talked about tonight?
not based
We
on what
talked
we talked about tonight, because I incorporated
Oh, okay.
the latest memo that came out. What it doesn't have is the waivers we've agreed to. I don't know what
I don't
waivers
think
we've agreed to.
I don't think it needs that. I think that what we've agreed is that all of the required submission items have been provided. The board is not looking for any additional information. And I think we're gonna read findings later if I included a statement to that effect in the findings that I proposed. That'll be read tonight.
Are we ready to read the findings for the golf course?
No, that's
No.
what potentially we are.
I wouldn't change what I've done, other than your comment, and we haven't given any waivers.
No,
None were requested, right?
Other than
There were waivers for signage.
Yeah, regular like sign and floor area.
all of the pertinent submission requirements were submitted. All of the ones that the board wanted were
Right.
submitted,
None of the waivers were things that were substantive too.
were pertinent to this
Actually,
application.
did we approve waivers last time? We may have.
I believe so.
We did, there was a
Yeah.
list
For-
of things.
Yeah, all we're talking
So
about
they
is
don't
whether
need
or
to be
not you
enumerated
needed
on
a
the
statement in the
findings
findings. And
Are you still
traditionally,
here?
we haven't taken notes.
All right.
We haven't, I mean, we've just gotten better about doing something to that effect, but I would propose to read those
I
findings
would
tonight.
say read them.
Happy to. Happy to.
Well, do we have the copies that are needed for signage?
I have 3 copies.
Now, you okay
sorry.
with taking his copies?
Sure.
They don't need to be office approved or office produced. So we're into the
My
other
printer's as
business,
good as yours.
we're into the other business section here.
Finding a fact.
So I actually
Read
have,
Finding of facts for approved applications.
I actually have 2 items of other business from staff before we get into the findings of fact.
Before,
So, and actually, we'll make that 3. So number 1, something a little bit exciting. We have a new secretary for our boards and committees in town. That's Lynn.
If you're
So,
wondering why she was sitting there,
yes, so we don't just have an eager observer to planning board proceedings.
I had hoped.
So Tricia took a full-time position with the town, so she's no longer doing our minutes.
do you want to, Lynn? Do you want to introduce yourself? Is it Lynn?
Yes, my, do I need to go?
Yes.
No.
No, you don't have to.
Okay. My name's Lynn Capitan, so, I'm not sure exactly what all you need, but I'm excited to start this and learn more, so.
are you new to the town, employee?
Yes, I officially
You can't,
started.
since,
All right, it's an inquisition.
Lynn, just introduce yourself again.
Okay.
Just
I'm Lynn Capitan, the new board of,
up to the mic, up to the mic. Because other than that, you won't be able to hear what people were saying.
no, I'm Lynn Capitan. I'm the new secretary for the boards here in Kennebunkport.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Is
Yep.
it Capitan?
Correct.
And do you live in town?
I do not. I live in Sanford.
Oh, all right, well, that's okay.
So,
No problem.
We like Sanford too.
Well, welcome.
Well,
Well,
Good, we're
thank
glad
you.
you're here.
Thank
Thank you.
You didn't run away after
No,
seeing
no.
the turmoil, or?
No, I actually did this job for Kennebunk pre-pandemic, and
For both of their planning boards?
they only had one at the time that I'm aware of. But yeah, I only did the one board for them.
Cool.
But I've got 4 boards that I'll be working with this town.
Okay.
So yeah,
Terrific,
Well, we
exciting.
we
Thank you.
really
Welcome,
appreciate
Lynn.
it.
well, thank you.
You know, big,
Thanks.
big shoes to fill, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's done a great job, I'm sure you will too.
All right, so our next item of other business is we have a hypothetical for the board. We're really enjoying these hypotheticals. It's good for the office. We have a lot in a previously approved subdivision, and they would like to have their driveway. The subdivision abuts Ocean Avenue, so it's Ocean Sound, and it comes off into Ocean Avenue. The lot is on the corner of Ocean Sound and Ocean Avenue, and they would like to, instead of having their driveway exit onto Ocean Sound, have their driveway exit onto Ocean Avenue. They may have discussed the reasoning with this for Galen. I don't believe there are any safety concerns. The subdivision was approved, so their driveway, would meet requirements if it came out onto Ocean Sound. Your ordinance does prohibit exit onto an arterial street from a subdivision, from a lot directly, if there's been a road that's approved. So we just wanted to give a hypothetical before they come back for a minor revision to see if the board would entertain that possibility.
And yet we just saw a sketch plan for a subdivision which has, by necessity, because one of the lots is not contiguous with the other lots, it's gonna have to go right out onto the road.
Yes, and we do actually have a requirement that deals with that situation. In that case, the driveway needs to exit onto the less traveled street.
Okay,
I think the requirement is that where there is a common drive, a common road available, you need to use it. Sort of written in those terms.
Common road or less traveled road?
No.
So that's not the situation we're in. That's the Bath Lane specific. So let me read you the language here. Maybe it will help facilitate this. Okay. Where a subdivision abuts or contains an existing or proposed collector street, no residential lot may have vehicular access directly onto the arterial street.
and the reasons for that are, we don't want arterial streets punctuated by more driveways than they need.
Absolutely,
The
yes.
whole reason for a subdivision is to create those common access points. Any more than we want strip malls, we like to have a road that comes off, rather than Hannaford's and all those ancillary things being stretched along Route 1. We have them back behind using a single entrance and exit.
Correct.
Is there an extenuating circumstance for moving this driveway? Or
Not
is
that I know of.
Is aesthetic? I mean, want an
I
address
think
on Ocean?
desire to have a different space on the driveway. I haven't personally spoken to the applicant. Galen was hoping to be here tonight to discuss this with you, but my understanding is that there's not a, I don't believe there are extenuating circumstances.
Is this a minor revision or a major revision?
I think it would be a minor revision because it's not changing any lot lines. It just would be moving that access point. And I believe that it would be a minor revision.
We're not sure that driveways are even shown on the existing plan. This is not an existing house.
Yes, the house is not,
It's under construction.
is not built. It's,
Not even.
Oh, it's not an existing house?
no.
Oh,
So this is the house has not been constructed, but before construction takes
I'm
place.
curious
right?
to hear if there's a really amazing reason why it has to be that way. Like
And-
there's a
and
piece
if-
of ledge,
If
there's
there's
a something.
not, just to cut this as short as we can, if there's not,
The answer for me would be no. The ordinance is clear. I don't write the ordinances, but I can read them.
yeah,
Okay.
Nadia chatted with me beforehand, and that was what I came to, says if there's a compelling reason, I'd like to know, but this looks like a no-brainer.
Yeah, otherwise everybody in the subdivision wants to, move a driveway and then we end up with a road with lots of road sticking out of it.
Sure.
Right.
So
Okay.
great.
Not
Well, I'll
inclined.
pass that message along.
Okay, thanks.
Second item of business, also to do with the subdivision. So the Land and Woods.
Is this the same subdivision?
No, different subdivision. The Land and Woods subdivision that the board recently approved, they would like to use the road name Ruth's Way. Your subdivision ordinance also prohibits the use of common given names for a street. Ruth's Way, the assessor and the fire chief have no issue with this, so would note. So we just wanted to make sure that everything was kosher though, and get the boards okay if they're okay with that. Ruth falls almost in the 200s on the Social Security Administration's name database, so it's certainly not one of the most common
Ruths,
names.
R-U-T-H-S.
Yes, Ruth.
Ruths, with an apostrophe.
No apostrophe on road names, but
Okay.
No, there's multiple Ruths.
R-U-T-H-S.
Obviously.
But we do have other streets in town named by first names, right? We have
Yes.
Kenneth, we have Robin, we have Kitties, we have, so I
Yes.
To me, you know, if the people who are required to worry about safety, first responders and the like, are okay with this, then I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
Great.
I think that's the concern. I still don't like it that we have two main streets. Oh, they're spelled
One has an
differently.
E.
Yeah.
No, they don't. South Main has an E,
911.
pal.
Yeah.
911.
So does
on Main-
North.
Maine with an E.
Yeah,
E.
I don't know
It's got
how
an
to
E.
spell it. So,
Okay,
Maine
so
is
I just wanted
M-A-I-N-E.
to make
South
sure
Main is
the board was,
M-A-I-N.
we want to make sure all of our Ts are crossed before,
and the only
Prove
thing, again,
anything, so.
I'll ask, as I did before, Nadia, and I've mentioned this to Galen, I'd like, at these meetings, us to refer to it as our ordinance and our regulations, and not your regulations. I think it gives people the wrong impression that somehow the code office isn't bought into the regulations, that they're someone else's. When we speak of them, we're talking about our land use ordinance.
Towns.
The towns, ours, it's our town.
Big brother, the man,
Is that a play?
the man.
It should be.
Although Roots
That's
is a
my
nice
request.
name, Roots.
No,
Ru-
not roots.
Root, I know Roots would be a nice name, but I have no problem with Roots.
okay?
All right.
So
thank you.
good with Ruth's Way, perfect. So that's the other business that I have from the office.
We need a
I
vice
can
chairperson at some
continue with the
point, but we
findings of
ought to have
fact.
we ought to have
I
a few more people here.
I didn't get an updated findings of fact with that 180-day extension from you. So I don't have
You
those,
didn't?
I did not. I checked my email, I did not see an update. So I have the old ones, I
Did
don't,
you get an update for me?
For which one?
for all of the dredging
The dredging?
applications.
I thought I saw one.
I didn't see one.
I saw the, I
I
saw the
one from
original.
George today or yesterday.
It wasn't. Oh, man.
Ed.
What are you doing, Ed?
So I think that, since it's just a one note about the 180 days, I think the board could certainly, read the findings of fact, and maybe you can all stop by to sign an updated
Yep,
version.
I think that's fine.
I'd be perfectly comfortable with that.
I'm comfortable with that as well. I
So
don't
then
see why
we- But everything else I think should be good to go.
So we doing 3 findings of fact today?
We have 6,
Feet get moving.
7 if you're,
gimme, gimme.
Oh, well,
If
that
we're-
includes the 4 and 1?
yes. But I do believe we have to read all of them. So settle in, everybody.
I'm a fast reader. Bill, did you need something?
I was checking to see if you were doing the FOFs, because those dredge projects
Yep.
are ours, so
And you're not under a strict time constraint on this end. You're still months away from being able to do that, right? So if you can't get the FOFs today, or tomorrow, you'll be okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check that was happening.
Yes,
That's great.
on the
So
agenda.
you're gonna get 5 of them today.
And the golf course.
Yeah, and the golf course.
Sweet. I'd love to stay, but.
So the golf course, we should be, if there's no other edits that
Can I
need
see
to.
them? And just, I can't find
Let's
my,
get reading.
my email, but.
Yeah. You want me to start?
So the golf course, we should be, if the board doesn't have any additions that they need to make, we should be able to pick it up tomorrow. We're open till 1, but
No,
before
this-
that, we'll have it notarized. And
This is
Okay,
wrong
that's fine.
in several senses. This doesn't have Mike's comments to me.
We're gonna read a finding of fact over here while you chat.
Go for it.
Okay.
All right, what would you like? George, do you want to go first?
Application of Cape Arundel Golf Club for a shoreline restoration and stabilization project, 19 River Road. Following a site plan review pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on 18 June 2025 and a public hearing held on 2 July 2025, Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions and renders the following decision subject to the conditions enumerated below. Findings of fact are as follows. Number one, the applicant is Cape Arundel Golf Club, an 18-hole course located at 19 River Road and abutting the Kennebunk River and Goff Mill Brook. In a letter dated 2 June 2025, the applicant authorized Walsh Engineering Associates, Inc. to act as their agent in this matter. William Walsh and Lena Toby of Walsh Engineering represented the applicant in all discussions before the planning board. 2, property is located at 19 River Road, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. 3, property is identified as map 12, block 1, lots 5 and 13 in the village residential zone on the municipal tax assessor's maps. 4, the property is also located within the town's 250-foot shoreline overlay zone. 5, the property is a 71.3 acre parcel of land containing a golf course, a 1-story, 2,760 square foot groundskeeper building, a 1-story, 5,410 square foot clubhouse, and a 2-story, 5,400 square foot groundskeeper storage building and office. 6, the applicant demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing multiple deeds for the property conveyed to Cape Arundel Golf Club, which were recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 1884, pages 68 and 9, and Book 11,891, pages 28 through 31. 7, the property directly abuts the Kennebunk River and the Goff Mill Brook with approximately 3,475 linear feet of river and brook frontage. The shoreline along these tidal bodies of water has experienced significant erosion due to large coastal storm events, river flooding, ice scour, and debris passing through the river. Many trees along the golf course's shoreline have been undermined by erosion at the highest astronomical tide elevation, causing trees to uproot or otherwise die and leaving the shoreline vulnerable to further erosion. In addition, most of the adjacent marsh areas are experiencing significant sill erosion between the riverbed and the club's shoreline. Lastly, many types of invasive species have grown aggressively along the river shoreline through the course. 8, the applicant is proposing to stabilize the shoreline, protect sills to prevent further erosion, strengthen the shoreline slopes, protect remaining trees, remove invasive species, and replant with native plantings and grasses. The shoreline will be secured with a combination of hardscape armoring, exposed and buried riprap revetments, and green living shoreline solutions. The proposed shoreline, 9, the proposed shoreline stabilization will add approximately 18,908 square foot of impervious area of exposed riprap revetment to the Cape Arundel Golf Club property, representing an increase in the percentage of impervious area across the entire 71.3 acre property of 0.61% to a total of 5.37%. In addition, 10,208 square foot of buried riprap revetment will be installed and approximately 1,328 square foot of existing exposed riprap revetment will be buried with soil and vegetated. Buried riprap revetments with surface vegetation are not considered impervious areas. 10, the project requires permits from the Maine Department of Environmental Protection. Application was submitted 28 March 2025. B, the Natural Resource Protection Act And C, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers application was submitted 9 April 2025. Permits from the DEP and the US ACE are not expected until September or October 2025 and may be delayed, so the applicant has requested a 180-day extension on any approval issued by the planning board in order to provide flexibility for the project start date. 11, pursuant to the requirements of Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance, Guidelines for Decisions, the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings, which would otherwise compel denial. And for all of those said findings, with the exception of one, the answer is yes. There is one, the proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use or for fire protection purposes, and the finding there was NA. 12, when a proposed development is located within the shoreland or resource protection zones, in addition to the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinances outlined in 11 above, approval of the development also requires the board make positive findings based on the information presented that the proposed use, and there are some 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 different proposed uses, and the answer to all is yes. Conclusions. In Article 1010A of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more findings that would otherwise compel denial. As noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision. The site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to the Article 1010 and Article 1012E. Number 1, Planning Board voted unanimously to approve a 180-day extension for a total of 360 days for the applicant to commence construction. 2, applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Registry of Deeds before any permits may be issued or before any construction activity may commence. 3, applicant must detail all proposed temporary construction access locations, both on River Road and on North Street, along with remediation plans to restore the access locations to their original conditions on a timely basis following their use, which shall be subject to approval of the Kennebunkport Public Works Department, the Deputy Police Chief, and the Code Enforcement Officer. 4, applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport Ordinance, as well as the Maine DEP, NRPA, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers approvals prior to the issuance of a building permit. 5, applicant must strictly adhere to the proposed revegetation plans. Dated 2 July 2025, Kennebunkport Planning Board. Okay, so we can sign this?
Yes.
Does anyone need a
One
pen?
down.
It was dated, you're gonna date it the 25th of last month? Is that what you said?
No, dated 2 July,
Oh, 2
today.
July, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I heard it.
Does anyone need a pen?
Got one.
I
Need another finding of fact, though.
Yes.
I have one.
I believe we have one of yours, George, and one of Mike's. So does anyone want to volunteer to read Mike's?
I'll read mine.
All right. So you can pass these both down to George.
I read fast.
And just, can I just insert a comment to, I apologize, I just found them in my draft, my outgoing, I never pushed the send button. You should have a copy of an email now. that
Yep.
has
I did get it.
I've got 'em
updated
now.
ones, and it has more than the one thing, George had given me a set of comments as
Okay.
well, so if I could read them off of my phone, and then we could go sign them.
I think my understanding is that they are in no rush to get these, so I'm
Oh.
happy to either, have them
Then-
read
then
next
let-
time, or
That's fine.
they can't even start work until, November?
Oh,
Or
in fact, that's
something.
why they wanted the 180.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't think that they're gonna be pressed about
Okay.
having the findings
I
of
just
fact.
feel badly for slowing it down. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, David.
Kennebunk Planning Board site application of John Bradford King and Pamela Epstein Family Trust, 22 and 22 Rear New Bedford Road, Kennebunkport, Maine. In an application dated 5/6/2025 and updated on 5/27/25, the applicant is proposing to remove and replace the existing screen porch and bedroom suite, rebuild the second floor, and various other renovations to the existing dwelling. They propose moving an existing driveway. Following a site plan review pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on May 21st and June 4th, 2025, and a public hearing held on June 18th, 2025, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings and conclusions and renders the following decision. Findings of fact. 1, the owner and applicant of the property is the John Bradford King and Pamela Epstein Family Trust, 933 South Madison Avenue, Pasadena, California, 91106. In a letter dated 18th of March 2025, the applicant authorized Scott Peterson of the Peterson Design Group, 5 Nassau Court, Village Green, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04043, as authorized agent for this matter. 2, the property has a street address of 22 and 22 Rear New Bedford Road, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046, identified as Assessor's Tax Map 41, Block 1, Lot 4 and 4B on the Municipal Assessor's Tax Map. 3, the owners of John Bradford King and Pamela Epstein Family Trust have demonstrated legal interest in the property by providing a copy of a quitclaim deed recorded in Book 19445, page 142 of the York County Registry of Deeds dated June 3rd, 2024. 4, the property is located in the Goose Rock Zone and partially inside the Shoreland and Resource Protection Zones. All the proposed project conforms to the 75-foot setback requirements. 5, the lot size is 28,294 square feet or 0.66 acres.
Thanks.
6, the existing non-conforming footprint of the property on Lot 4 will be increased from 4,276 square feet to 4,316 square feet, an increase of 25%. The volume will be increased from 44,623 cubic feet to 50,800 cubic feet, an increase of 13.8%. 7, as the driveway will be repositioned, the town planner suggests that the applicant include deed language for Lot B, creating a parking easement as the existing parking is entirely on Lot 4. 8, the applicant has requested submission or performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance for the following. 2240-10.6 C. 14, there will be no additional signage and waivers are requested. The planning board granted the above waivers. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 10.10.a of the Land Use Ordinance Guidelines for Decisions, the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings, which would otherwise compel denial. There are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, and O. All of them were finding yes. Any negative finding by the board means that the application has been denied. The application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Article 10.10.a of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application excuse me, unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial, and as noted above, the board made no such findings. Decision. The site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 10.11 and 10.12.e. 1, the applicants pursuant to 10.12.e shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to the construction of an approved project. No assignment or transfer of rights to construct an approved project is valid without prior review and approval by the planning board. 2, the applicants must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the form of a copy thereof attested by the Register of Deeds before any permits may issue or before any construction activity may commence. 3, the applicant shall comply with all the terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances. 4, 219-2, a flood hazard development permit will be required for the project as most of the proposed work will be taking place within the floodplain.
One note, I think you said Scott Peterson. His name is Eric.
Yeah, I caught that. I thought you,
His name is Eric.
And that's Eric with a K.
And it does say Scott. Eric with a K, yes?
Yes.
All right, and there's 2 initials on the front page. right. Kennebunkport Planning Board Site Plan Application of David and Jean Ann Betts's, 8 Langsford Road, Kennebunkport, Maine. An application dated 5/14/2025 and updated on 5/27/25. The applicant is asking for an increase in retail space by 200 square feet of an existing business, adding an additional parking space. Following a site plan review pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on May 21st and June 4th, 2025, and a public hearing held on June 18th, 2025. Someone did a cut and paste job, George. That's how that got there. Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings and conclusions and renders the following decision. Findings of fact. 1, the owner and applicant of the property is David and Jean Ann Betsy's, Post Office Box 1867, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04406. And a letter dated 1 April 2025, the applicant authorized Ms. Christy Kenny of KW Architects, Post Office Box 404, Wells, Maine, 04090, as an authorized agent for this matter. 2, the property has a street address of 8 Langsford Road, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046, identified as Assessor's Tax Map 30, Block 1, Lot 23, on the Municipal Assessor's Tax Map. 3, the property is located in the Cape Porpoise Square Zone and entirely outside of shoreland and resource protection zones. 4, in February 1999, this project received approval from the Kennebunkport Planning Board as a mixed-use commercial building with a portion of the building designated for retail use and the remainder as warehouse space. Applicant is now proposing a minor modification to enlarge the retail space to 800 square feet. This revision results in a requirement for 1 additional parking space. To accommodate this, they propose to rotate the 3 existing parking spaces at the rear of the building to create a total of 4 parking spaces in that area. The 4 rear spaces will all be at code requirement of 10 feet by 20 feet. The 2 existing parking spaces at the front, including 1 ADA accessible space, will remain unchanged. The owners, David and Jean Ann Betsy's, have demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a copy of a warranty deed recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 9464, page 264, dated May 10, 1999. 6, the property is described as a plus or minus 2,750 square feet mixed-use retail and warehouse building on a plus or minus 11,787 square feet lot, according to the application. No new structures or additions are part of this application and will not result in any net increase in impervious surface on the lot. 7, the applicant has requested submission of performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance for the following: 24-10.6, the closest point from the structure to a body of over is approximately 284 feet away. 240-10.6C7, there is no change to the building, and the changes proposed to parking lot are minimal. 8, topography was shown on the original 1999 Planning Board submission. There is no change to the building, and the changes proposed to parking lot are minimal. 10, requested a waiver for the road improvement cross-sections, design details, and dimensions. The proposed changes will match the existing gravel details. 11, the existing stormwater system will remain. The sanitary system is public and will not change. Water is the town water supply and will not change. 12, landscape and buffering plans were approved with the 1999 Planning Board submission. The existing landscape is to remain as is. 13, all exterior lighting is existing to remain and no changes are proposed. 14, the existing signage will remain. Any new business will replace the signage with the same square footage as existing. 2, B, C, and D, the project does not have a legal survey with updated NAVD or GPS grades. However, there are minimal changes to the existing. 7A, the erosion control area was designed and approved in 1999. No proposed to the changes in this area. B, the only changes to parking lot will be to rotate the existing rear parking spaces and slightly change the configuration to allow for 1 additional parking space. The existing entrance, exit, curb cut, and driveway is to remain unchanged. 7CA, requesting a waiver for the painted arrows or signs to define the circulation patterns areas gravelled. 7AC, the erosion controlled area was designed and approved in 1999. No proposed any changes to this area. 7.3F, requesting a waiver for bumpers and or wheel stops. The area is gravelled. 7C, stormwater. The existing stormwater system was designed and approved in 1999. No proposed changes to the stormwater system, and there will be no change to the amount of impervious lot coverage. 10.7D, buffers. The existing landscape and buffers were approved and installed in 1999. Requesting a waiver from changing any of the existing buffers. However, they are proposing an enclosed area around the 4 waste bins that will be located at the base of the rear stairs as shown in the plan. Planning Board granted the above waivers. 8, pursuant to the requirements of Article 10.10.a in the Land Use Ordinance Guidelines for Decisions, the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one of the more following identified findings which would otherwise compel denial. For A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, and P, all of the findings are yes. Any negative findings by the board means the application is been denied, the application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Article 10.10.a, the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial, and as noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision. The site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Article 10.11 and 10.12.e. 1, the applicants pursuant to 10.12.e shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to construct an approved project. No assignment or transfer of rights to construct an approved project is valid without prior review and approval by the planning board. 2, the applicants must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the form of a copy therefore attested by the Register of Deeds before any permits may issue or before any construction activity may commence. 3, the applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions, the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances. That's it.
I have a motion to approve the 3 findings of facts that have just been read.
Ooh, good
I'll
call.
move that motion.
I approve that.
Approved?
I,
That's a good one.
Okay.
Good catch, Mr. Chairman.
Well, good catch after failing to send the 4 findings that I had updated.
That's all right.
Oh,
this is
25.
May I have another motion?
If everyone would be willing to stick around for a couple minutes after adjournment, I have some plans to sign as well.
Oh,
So-
okay.
But you certainly can adjourn before
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I would move to adjourn.
Yeah, see, you don't even have
Is there
my
a
name
second?
on.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.